Hey everyone, welcome back to Critical Coverage. Today we're diving into a major censorship scandal. Senator Josh Hawley exposed Facebook and Google in a mass censorship operation. These tech giants willingly participated. They own it. If you support independent voices, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Let's get into it.
Let's take a look here at something that Facebook, Meta, whatever, something that they've said, Mark Zuckerberg in particular, said, or was reported in 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly this is Zuckerberg speaking, pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. Ultimately, it was our decision whether or not to take the content down. Now, the point that I want to get at, and maybe I'll start with you, Ms. Hemingway, because you and your outlet were a target of a lot of this and were censored left, right, center. You personally were censored. Don't you think that Facebook needs to be held accountable for their role in all of this? I mean, so Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg says, gosh, they were so mean to us, the Biden people, they threatened us, and they did. Biden did. Was that unconstitutional? I think it was. This is why that Supreme Court case that we've been talking about today, the Missouri case, is so significant. But isn't it also true that, as Zuckerberg himself says in the statement, it was their decision, they owned it, and truthfully, Facebook and others have a pattern of censoring long before this, the Hunter Biden laptop story. They gleefully, willfully censored on their own. They have been avid participants in this censorship campaign. Would you agree with that, Ms. Hemingway?
Yes. Mark Zuckerberg, who spent nearly $450 million in the 2020 election to control the outcome there, has recently done a few little things like saying, I was sort of pressured to do this censorship, or, I'll give $1 million to the inauguration committee, as if this in any way makes up for the campaign of censorship that he was engaged in, which was probably valued even more than the money he gave to the election, to censor and silence voices like mine and my publication because we said things on all sorts of topics that were at odds with what he wanted, whether that's the radical trans agenda, how elections should be run, how to respond to the COVID pandemic, all sorts of topics where in a free society you should have free and open debate, and he worked very hard to keep that from happening. So I find these statements kind of interesting, but they nowhere near deal with the agency that he had on this and how much power he has as the head of Facebook.
Yeah. Senior officials from the Biden administration pressured Facebook to censor certain COVID-19 content, humor, satire, and opinions, things that should be protected under free speech. And what did Facebook do? They complied. Mark Zuckerberg admitted they were under pressure, but it was their decision to take content down. They weren't just bullied, they owned it. Big tech isn't a victim, they're active participants in controlling what you see.
Companies like Facebook, Meta, have enormous structural power that Mark Zuckerberg has spent, to your point, he has spent billions of dollars amassing. He has worked to destroy competitors who might break that power up, challenge that power in any way. He has used that power to stifle competition. He's used it to stifle views he doesn't like. This is a textbook example of what happens when a monopoly that has a political agenda, in this case a very hard-edged political agenda for years, when they use that monopoly in order to try to control other competitors and also to try to control the information that flows to the American people. Do I have that right, do you think?
Yes, and the political system itself, which had previously been so supportive of him, and the work that he did to silence, again, not just in the election sphere, but those journalistic voices that were countering his preferred policy objective.
Facebook has a history of censorship. This isn't new behavior. Remember the Hunter Biden laptop story? They blocked it before the 2020 election, claimed it was misinformation. Later, mainstream outlets admitted it was real. Facebook, Google, and others censor viewpoints against their agenda. Politics, COVID debates, election integrity, they silence it. Mark Zuckerberg has spent billions amassing power. Facebook and Google are information gatekeepers. They decide what's visible and what's buried. Google manipulates search results to sway elections. If unchecked, free speech could disappear.
This is just terrific, and you are perfectly placed to talk about that and to bring this to light. I think it's so vital that we don't lose sight of the role that these massive companies, and there's just a few of them. I mean, it's Google, it's Meta, that the control that they have amassed and that they have used to try and dictate, frankly, what Americans can see. And we know in the case of Google, we've had testimony in this committee and subcommittees before, Google has rigged their search results to try and influence independent voters and try to sway elections for years, and not just in this country. They've done it in other countries. They've done it in Australia. These are massive monopoly corporations that have political agendas that have been using their market power to try and influence. Actually, that's not strong enough to try and control outcomes in our political system. That is a problem. And I would just submit, until we deal with their power, this problem is going to persist. Thank you all for being here. Mr. Chairman, thank you for having this great hearing.
So what can be done? Some lawmakers are fighting back. Real change won't happen unless people demand it. Support independent voices and platforms. Click subscribe and turn on notifications. The more people who see this, the harder it becomes for big tech to control the narrative. Do we let a handful of tech billionaires control what we can say and see? Or do we fight back, stay informed, stay engaged, and most importantly, keep speaking out? Thanks for watching. See you next time.